So good question. Would all the money end up in a hard currency environment in the 1%'s hands? No, not really, because they still have to spend money to get people to do something for them. Sooner or later, somebody who's rich is going to want something being done, and they're going to have to pay somebody for that. And then that person's going to just take that money, and then they're going to spend it, and they're going to do things they want to do with it. So there is a problem with no man's an island, right? So to suggest that somebody can just do all this work and then get a bunch of money, but then never have to spend it, well, that's tricky, because they'd have to actually be able to maintain everything in their life by themselves, and that's not going to happen. Traditionally speaking, people, as they get a little older, they start having to spend more and more money on services, on things that they used to do themselves, right? They used to be able to mow their own lawn, but now they're getting older, and their hips bug them or their knees bug them, and they can't do their own lawn, so now they have to pay somebody. Well, the other thing is that the spending power of the money that's actually in there. So let's say someone did try to hoard all the cash, right? There was some whale who tried to hoard it all. Eventually, that means that whatever's out there in the marketplace is going to have more spending power. That's all it is. It just means it's going to have more and more spending power progressively, and until those guys have to either start buying stuff or start spending their money, let's say they go to their grave with it. In the case of Orange Internet money, you can actually take it with you. So let's say you do. All that means is that whatever's out there, all the sats that are out there in the real world, just have more spending power. That's all that means. So and as far as like lending is concerned, yeah, it ends the fuck out of lending. Lending's gone. Actually, banking, which is lending, usury and what have you, okay, banking goes away right along with insurance, right? A lot of people don't think about this, but insurance goes away too. Because remember, insurance is just banking in reverse. It's the same scam done in reverse. You prepay for a loan with insurance, okay? And then if you need more money, they begrudgingly, after you sue them typically, they begrudgingly give you the money that they owe you, and then they socialize the losses against everybody else, because remember, it's privatized gains, socialized losses. That's how insurance works. So insurance is just banking done in reverse. So no, these things go away. They go away very quickly. If you look at how the system operates, you've got inflation, taxes, interest, and insurance premiums. Those four things, if those four things go away, then the average American, the average human being on this planet's life vastly improves very quickly, because they're not having all of their money, their spending power siphoned away by these institutions and these ideas, okay? So you can say, look, the problem is like, well, then how do we handle insurance and so on? Like, that's another topic for another video. But ultimately it's like, well, it's gambling. It doesn't really work, and the math won't work on something like that. It means that you save your money for a rainy day. It means you put aside your own money, and you become like hyper responsible. There's that word again. I know we don't like the R word, but yeah, you become responsible. You become a grown-up, and you start saying, okay, hey, listen, I do need to start saving some money. Usually, and if you have like little kids, try to encourage little kids, your children, to, if you have them, I don't mean you specifically, but I mean just in general, anybody out there, you want to teach your kids to save money, so that way, if something does happen, that they're not screwed, right? And they're able to actually deal with some of these problems without having to try and run to somebody else to bail them out. Because in a responsible society, there really isn't anybody to bail you out other than like maybe family and friends or something like that. And if they know you've been irresponsible your whole life, they're not going to be quite as likely. They're not going to be as keen to want to start giving you money and start fixing everything, because they've been watching you drink away, all of your money, kind of thing. Okay, so it requires responsibility, and this is just how it is, right? This is just how things were before we started selling people the idea of, do whatever the hell you want to do, and there'll always be somebody there to backstop you. Well, hard currency gets rid of the backstops. It really does, and that's why education on it is so important. Most people have been ill-educated in terms of money their entire existence, and that's by design. That's not an accident. That's not, they slipped through the cracks, these hundreds of millions of people. No. It's done deliberately. It's done through the school system. And it's to make sure that people don't know they're being taken advantage of. They don't know what questions to ask. So if you know what questions to ask, then you find that you're going to put a lot of these folks on the spot. So I hope that answers your question, and I didn't want to get too far afield from this, but that's how a hard economy works. It just means that the people that are in the economy, which is everybody else, because all an economy is just people. That's all it is. It's just people engaged in commerce. That's all an economy is. It's not some building. It's not some stock market. It's not the president. It's not any of that shit. An economy is just people. You, me, everybody doing shit, right? And then we need to be able to figure out how we can balance the books amongst ourselves, right? I do a bunch of physical work out in the sun, making sure you have electricity, for example. That has value, okay? So do the jobs of other people. All those other people, all those millions and millions and millions of invisible men that nobody wants to date for whatever reason. I don't know why, but the smart ones do. But all those millions of men that are invisible, right? They're the ones who do all this shit, and that has value. And so again, that's why the people who do all the work will eventually start absorbing the money, which is why that 1% idea doesn't really fly in the practical sense. They could try it. Someone could try to hoard all the money, but eventually they're going to need a tooth pulled. You understand? Eventually they're going to need someone to do something for them. They're going to need a prostate exam, right? Okay, and they're going to pay somebody to do that, and that person's going to say, okay, well, great. I mean, hey, you've got you've got all the money, so I'll take the entire Western Hemisphere as my payment. I hope that helps.